right, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new season of the Fraud Boxer podcast. Today is going to be episode 1 of the brand new season, and it's going to be an interesting one because I have my own team here today. So I have Steve Kim over here, and I have Christopher De La Fuente, who we call KDF internally. We'll probably try to refer to him as Christopher for the sake of this podcast. But I am joined by my very own team. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing good, Jordan. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for being a guest and probably at some point stroking my ego maybe a little bit, you know. How are you doing, Chris?
Oh, good, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us on. Pretty excited for this. So,
Yeah, I think it'll be good for people to understand what it's like to work at iHerb and understand kind of what we do, how we structure our team, what it's like working with me, what it was like before me, what it's like after me, and some of the things that we're working on. I think we pride ourselves on being pretty close to the forefront of our industry on the technologies that we use and some of the processes that we see. So I think that it's going to be kind of cool to share what we can share, of course, with the broader audience, so people know what it's like on a day to day for us. So obviously, everybody here, you kind of know me, Jordan Harris. I'm the main guy on the Fraud Boxer podcast, the senior director of the fraud prevention team at iHerb. So why don't you guys both introduce yourselves? Steve, we'll kind of start with you, and then Christopher, we'll go to you.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Steve. I am the manager of the fraud prevention team here at iHerb. I have 5 years of experience in the fraud industry, all of which, I've accumulated through my tenure here at iHerb. I actually started off as a regular associate, like many do so in the industry. Back then, when I was a regular associate, my primary tasks back then were just, reviewing the manual review queue, handling customer contacts, and heading up the fraud side of our referral program. And today, in my role, I just help out with coaching and mentoring our associates, facilitating resources needed for our initiatives, and also I work on the fraud strategy for our team.
Yes, you do. Christopher, what about you, man? That's your history here.
yeah. Hey, everybody. Yeah, my name is Chris De La Fuente. I've been at iHerb now for about going on 6 years. I'm about to hit 6 years, I think, this June. Have been in the fraud industry now for about 7 years, I would say. Came in to iHerb already with some knowledge, and was able to help out, basically coming in and heading up, chargebacks and how to dispute them, and stuff like that. We had a relatively small team at the time for the amount of volume that we were doing. So, yeah, I've definitely been fortunate enough to see the changes that we've made, within our department and just making, the overall process better.
Yeah, and we brought you into leadership about probably the last quarter of last year, so a little over a year. And you kind of wound up at getting the
Yeah.
crash course in people management with some of the changes that we had to make right
Yeah,
away with some layoffs and things. That was quite the introduction into people management there.
yeah, it's definitely been quite a year, especially coming in and just yeah, it's been quite an
Yeah.
experience for sure. So
Yeah.
it was a quick year. It was a quick year. I'm really looking forward to this year, seeing what we have in, what we have in store and going from here.
Yeah, normally in these things I would do at this point, like how we all met, but I think you guys met me when I got hired to come in here back in December of 21. Normally I try to do like a little process. Christopher, I gave you the book, the first 90 days, where it's like you kind of ease into managing your new folks, get a
Yeah.
lay of the land, figure out why the company operates the way it does, how it operates, understand your people before you start making any changes, before you start ripping anything out. That way it's not a jarring experience. You really want to learn the underlying process. But unfortunately, the nature of how our business was working at the time with the Russia and the Ukraine situation, our timeline kind of got upped, so we had to start making decisions a lot quicker. So I apologize, guys, that we didn't get to have the nice, smooth, easy transition. But I think at the end of the day, we all found our way pretty quickly in how we work with each other. So, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your guys' history before we get into kind of what we do and how our days are. Granted, you guys just talked about your history here at iHerb, but let's talk about how you wound up into fraud. I always like to have my guests on the show talk about how they wound up in fraud. A lot, I mean, now there's like some courses that you can do where people kind of take this career path, but at the time when we all got into it, this was not something that I think anybody even really realized existed as a job. And here we all are several years into our tenure as doing this full time, paying the bills, buying houses, all those sorts of things. So let's talk to both of you guys how you both wound up in fraud. And Steve, we'll kind of start with you, and then KDF will go to you, and we'll kind of keep that pattern probably the whole way through this thing. But feel free to jump in on anything if you guys have anything to add over each other or over me. This is very much a conversation. This isn't Jordan just talking. I do love to hear the sound of my own voice, but I also love to hear my guests. So yeah, Steve, how'd you get into fraud?
Yeah, so I got into fraud probably by chance and luck, to be honest. So I guess I can take you back to, when I just graduated from college. My first job out of college was actually as a private investigator. So I would, follow people around and, work on like fraudulent, what is the word? Insurance claims.
Were you like taking pictures of them, like lifting boxes and stuff, that sort of thing?
That was exactly what I was doing. And I didn't really
gnarly.
I didn't really feel too comfortable with like, the nature and the ethicality of the job. So I didn't really last too long. In that,
did anybody ever like approach you?
Yeah,
like while you're taking pictures
in that?
Yeah, there's some stories I can tell you guys offline. But yeah, I definitely got approached before. Not by the subject, but by people,
bystanders.
Yeah, by people that live in the neighborhood and just kind of, just pretty much doing like a neighborhood watch, like, what are you doing here? But yeah, I didn't really last too long there. So
Wow.
Yeah, my second job after that one, I actually took on a position as an entry-level position at a commercial financing company. And it's at this company where, I learned a lot about, how commercial loans work and all that good stuff. I was actually working towards a credit analyst position at this company. But unfortunately, it was contingent upon openings, and there weren't any openings during my time. So things weren't moving as fast as I had hoped. So that's where I started to, look at what opportunities are out there. And I came across the fraud prevention associate listing on, I think it was like Indeed or something back then. And I was fortunate enough to land an interview. And thankfully, the hiring manager back then, her name was Andrea Albini. I guess she liked me, so she hired me, and that's how I pretty much got into fraud.
See, it's always these interesting paths that we all had to take. What about you, KDF? How'd you get into fraud?
Yeah, it's a I remember when you got hired, Steve, that was I think we all initially liked you right away from the very beginning. So shout out to Andrea for making the right call on that one.
That's good. Hey,
But yeah, I kind of came up, I think, in an sort of an unorthodox kind of way as well. My first job out of high school, I was working at Disneyland. I started off as a busboy there, at some of the restaurants, but eventually kind of just switched jobs. At obviously, during that time when you're fresh out of high school, you're kind of looking for yourself, right, and your career path and stuff like that. But I ended up at this company called Monoprice, and I started off in the warehouse there. I was hired through a temp agency, and I was unloading containers for the first few weeks, literally like breaking my back. At one point I actually thought like my back was going to go out because it was starting to hurt. Thankfully, they were able to switch me into a less physical demanding role within the warehouse. And I just kept doing my work for about a year and a half. I was grinding it out. And I put myself out there on a very regular basis. I said, hey, I have experience in sales. I have experience with this. Let me see if I can get into your customer service, roles somehow, and eventually was able to get an interview. From the interview, I got hired into the RMA department there at Monoprice, and, just made the right connections and showed interest and just, and everything that I was doing, obviously, I definitely put in the work. But when it came to fraud, I think I had a little,
the spark behind it,
because at that time I was kind of even also looking to get into police force, and stuff like that. But once I saw the fraud thing, I was like, hey, this is very interesting. I never knew this existed. And the guy who was running at the time, Joseph Chavez, shout out to that guy. He really kind of mentored me into going into the fraud world, and he showed me the ropes. He would train me and really I think within like 6 months, he was able to get my foot in the door. And then within like the first week or two that I was in fraud, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving." And I'm like, "What
Ah.
do you mean, bro?" So once he left, though, I kind of just assumed the role there, and I was able to take it upon myself, and I was able to build different analytics there that I would, show it to my manager, and then they would pass it on to the director, and then from there they would show it on the monthly meetings, with the executive team there and stuff. So I was able to get my name out there. Within about a year or so, Joseph calls me up and says, "Hey, man, I need an analyst to come over here to iHerb." And I'm like, "I'm ready, man. What's up? What you got?" And sure enough, here I am.
Yeah.
And that's how I got here.
I think you kind of left out a little part in the middle there where you also did. You and I both play guitar. We've played guitar together, and I think
Yeah.
there was a whole part in the middle there where you spent some time at some of our favorite establishments, the Guitar Center and the Sam Ash. I think that might come up on my next question too, though. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
spent some time there. It,
yeah,
it was exciting, but we'll leave that for the next one.
yeah, because we have a whole outline here that we're gonna kind of stick to. So I mean, obviously, building off of fraud wasn't our ever our intentions in life. What were some of your guys' goals? Like, what did you guys see? Like, when we're all in elementary school, we're gonna like, this is what we're gonna do when we grow up. What were you guys gonna do when you grow up? And like, Steve, we'll start with you again on that one.
Yeah. So my goals have kind of shifted, as I've, I guess, gone through life. So yeah, out of college, I thought I was gonna be, going into the law enforcement side, like KDF. Um, but it was during my time here at iHerb actually. I was making pretty rapid progress, I would say. And
Yeah,
I was, I guess, fortunate enough to have met, good bosses that allowed me to grow in the industry as fast as, I did. And then also they also helped, expose me to the potential of an actual career in this industry.
yeah,
So I mean, from there, I did dabble a little bit in like the data analytics side, like business intelligence side. I was actually really interested in it. I did some self-learning and kind of learned how to write code in like SQL and all that stuff. So that was also like a little side thing that I was trying to accomplish. And through there, I made some good friends in our BI team, and thinking that maybe they'll be able to help me out in the future. Um, but my goal right now, it's probably just to continue to learn and just keep up to date with all things like fraud and payments related, and probably just try to climb the corporate ladder as high as I can go. And then I guess a longer term goal would be, I still want to work in this industry, the fraud and payments industry, but it's always been a goal of mine to kind of own and run a small business, something absentee owned where I don't have to be there every day, 8
yeah.
hours, 10 hours a day. So that's like my long-term vision.
Little passive income situation, like 4 hour work week, Timothy Ferris style. Um,
Yeah.
I will say, just before we go into your part, KDF, about this, I think there's an interesting thing in there where, not just the rapid progress. Rapid progress, I think, helps like solidify people's, like, if you can reward employees and show that they have momentum and progress in their career path. It doesn't have to be promoting them every 15 minutes, but like just showing them that there is momentum and there is longevity if they stick to a certain path can go a long ways. And I think a lot of people overlook that, especially like if you see like middle management, like you go on like Reddit, like anti-work and work reform and all that, they always are complaining about middle managers, but it's always the same type of complaint that like people feel stuck in a rut and like spinning wheels. And there's a lot of things that you can do for people to show them that there is momentum, and some of those things can be monetary and some of those things can be non-monetary. Something as simple as sending somebody to a conference is goes a long ways for people that don't normally get to be exposed to those sorts of things, or going out to dinners, vendor dinners. Little things that show that like you're making investments in the people can go a long ways. And I was just talking to, even before this, guys, I was talking to one of my friends at JP Morgan Chase, about a role that she has open that I kind of put up on LinkedIn today, that she's trying to fill some stuff. And we were kind of going over other people in the industry that are in this industry that have talked about leaving this industry. And I know a couple people that are like, I think I'm just going to look for jobs outside of this industry. And every time I have to say, like, there's a million accountants out there, but there's only a few thousand of us fraud people. And that puts us in a unique position of being experts in our industry and being efficient and effective at what we do, that it gives us an ability to climb that corporate ladder, like you said, in a different type of fashion, and also command a different type of price, because it's a highly specialized skill that not a lot of people possess. So we all know each other in this industry, and it's, I just couldn't imagine leaving, because basically not only would it feel like starting over, but I feel like the pay in other industries for similar titles is just so far different from what we get paid in this industry because of our specialized talent. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, Jordan, you make a good point because while I was in the process of applying for law enforcement, I probably told Christopher this when I was going through the process. I actually made it pretty far. I would say probably just like one more step, and they would have offered me, the cadet position. But it was at a point where I made good progress in the fraud industry, and I had to kind of weigh out the pros and cons of like which route to take. And one of the downsides of me leaving fraud and going into law enforcement was that I felt like it would be a lot harder for me if, say, law enforcement wasn't the thing for me. I thought it'd be much more difficult for me to return into this field and into the position that I am currently in, um, rather than the other way around. Like law enforcement, there is an age cap with certain agencies, but I still have the option if I end
Yeah.
up saying fraud and payments industry is not for me. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
we're not gonna let that happen. But it's not the part of the bullets being fired at you. Like that'd be a big con for me, But yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that
shame.
too. That too.
Yeah.
and I think we'll kind of talk about. I do want to touch on some of those sorts of things when we talk about iHerb and some of the differences. So we'll circle back to that. KDF, let's talk about kind of you real quick. Let's do what were your big dreams? What were your big plans? What were you trying to do? And then we're gonna start talking about iHerb.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I've, as life has gone by, definitely my goals have shifted. When I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be Bono from U2. That's who I wanted to
That
be
is
when
your
I grew
favorite
up.
band.
Yeah. And no, growing up, I was really I played various instruments, was able to pick up the guitar at a young age, and then I eventually from there I picked up different stuff like the bass, the drums, and to the point where I had an entire basically recording studio in my house, and I wanted to really be in the music industry in one way or another. And then from there, I kind of decided to, work at Guitar Center in Sam Ash, and I was a sales associate there for quite some time. I was in the pro audio section, recording section, and stuff like that. Um, it kind of, I think being in that industry, especially in that sales part, maybe had a little bit to do with like a backfire for the music industry, because I ended up kind of getting a little burnt out by it. And
Yeah,
I would,
I can see
you
that.
know, I would make all the intention to like, okay, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna do some recording, I'm gonna do this, but I'd get home and I'm kind of like, I don't want to be around
You
technology
just
right now.
spent
Yeah.
all
It's
day
just
already
like,
doing that
yeah,
kind of stuff and selling
exactly.
it
I
to
just
people. Yeah.
kept hearing a bunch of people playing the same riffs or playing the same stuff, on the piano. And it
Smoke
just
on the
kind of,
water, baby, every
oh
day.
man, you know how many times I heard that the one from Slash, what's that song? Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, they have that on that stupid that like Geico commercial or
Yeah,
whatever
every
right
time I see
now.
that commercial, like, eesh. But yeah, so I unfortunately I just kind of drifted away from it a little bit. Obviously, I still have the passion and the love for music, and I still have my guitar. I still pick it up every once in a while and stuff like that. But I just kind of drifted away from it, and really from there, I think my goals shifted. Right, I just at one point I was just kind of you know going from job, and I ended up in the warehouse, at Monoprice, and I think that's when it really hit me. I'm like, man, this isn't, and not to say anything bad about that kind of work. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I thought
Yeah,
I really
that's
need
what
to do something about this.
there's people that really like warehouse work. They like the physicality of
Yeah.
it. Like, and then there's
Hmm.
people that don't. But that's just that type of people. Like some people just like to be out walking around wearing a Carhartt jacket, lifting boxes because they get to have their headphones in and like
Yeah.
they get to clock out. And when they clock out and they go home, like they go home. Like the three of
Yeah.
us that are on this call, like as you guys have very much known, we're always on. Like if something happens
Always.
in the middle of the night, like we have to deal with it. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of the people that we work with, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, um, are not in this country. So that
Yeah.
kind of messes up the times that we have to be available
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So
So the thing is once I got so if we let's fast forward a little bit. Once I got into monoprice and in the RMA section, this is where I think my life really took a very pivotal turn. I was also thinking about going into law enforcement. But when I got into the RMA and the customer service portion in monoprice, I was extremely fortunate to have a good boss or some good bosses who really allowed me to think for myself and kind of expand, my wings and be creative on how I approached on the daily tasks, and stuff like that. And when I assumed the role in the fraud section there, at Monoprice, they said, "Hey, man, do your thing." They trusted me enough to be able to kind of, deliver on what I said I was going to do. And that really, for me, was what opened the doors with, in this industry and just in corporate America. I was like, I, I, I like this. Like, I really think that I can go somewhere with this. And it was the fact that they made me, they allowed for the doors to be open. They allowed me to walk through it. They weren't micromanaging. They weren't, it was a really, really good experience that I had there. And it was
Wow.
because of them that I was able to grow. And yeah, so shout out to them for allowing me to do that. Now my goals are, obviously I want to continue to learning here in the fraud industry and in the payment side, and continue talking to vendors as we usually
Yeah.
do. But yeah, I also I recently decided to go back to school as well. So I've been doing that and I've been studying statistics. I might think my long-term goal right now is to kind of hopefully sort of bridge the gap between data science and fraud prevention.
Well, there's good news. Data science and fraud prevention are becoming very much entwined.
Yeah.
We used to
Yeah.
have a like actually one of the reasons that I did join iHerb was there was a gentleman that I worked with at Ticketmaster that was one of the data science team. He originally was on the fraud prevention team over there right before I took it over in 2020. As I was doing the chargebacks at first and just advising on the fraud team, but he was on the data science team for the fraud specifically. And then he kind of left the project and left the company during the 2020 shutdown. And he was over here at iHerb. And when I joined, I was working with him and he was going to run some analytics around the stuff that we did. But obviously Ukraine and Russia obviously changed a lot of things. So we didn't quite get the time allocation with
Yeah.
him that I had hoped. But
Yeah.
let's talk now. We're going to talk about management styles and bosses and those sorts of things and career trajectories a little more. I think we'll find a spot to put that in over here because I do think it's important. So let's pivot to what we do in our company. So our company is iHerb, everybody. And Steve, why don't you kind of run the people with the with what iHerb actually is? It's not a weed company, everybody. We don't sell weed. We don't even sell CBD products at this time. We are a health and wellness. So Steve, why don't you take it away on that one?
Yeah. Like Jordan said, we're not a weed company, but we're an e-commerce company specializing in products related to, health and wellness. So things like vitamins, supplements. Um, Also, we do sell some groceries. It makes up a smaller portion of our sales, but we do sell grocery products like herbs and spices, like potato chips, chocolate/candy, the healthy kinds. We don't sell like Doritos over here. And our mission here at iHerb is to, make health and wellness accessible to the whole world.
Yeah, so just for the people out there, like my US base, which a lot of my listener base, according to the traffic models, is US based. We don't do a lot of business in the US. And I've said it on a few of my podcasts before. Competition is pretty stiff in the US. We do have Amazon here that gets things quickly, everybody's familiar with. So the vast majority of our business, greater than 90% of our business, is done outside of the US. And we specialize in the Middle East, in the APAC regions, like Korea, Japan, China, typically Russia. And however, right now with the current conflict, we are not doing business with Russia, but we do business with the Ukraine. We Those people do need their vitamins. They still are allowed to get their vitamins over there, and we want to be able to make sure that we are supplying health and wellness products to people that are in need in countries like that. And then a lot of South America, those are emerging markets, Mexico, Brazil. Brazil's been emerging for a long time. Hopefully it will emerge fully now under new leadership, but we'll see about that. Those are the regions that we really specialize in. Saudi Arabia is a really big one for us. So getting our products into territories that historically don't get serviced by companies like us, including Africa even, which that's a really challenging market. And I think a lot of the things that makes our particular challenge for the three of us unique And we do have 4 manual review analysts on the team as well. But what makes it unique is the challenges in those markets. Those are markets that not a lot of people have had a lot of experience in. And they have their own complete sets of user behaviors, shipping to things like lockers versus houses. Address formats are different. Purchase patterns are different. The amount of products that they can buy to get through certain customs limitations are different. And these present a completely unique set of challenges that requires a certain level of expertise. And I definitely don't claim to be that at all. And I don't claim to ever have that knowledge about that. I do pride myself that you guys have that knowledge and you guys can help me when I need it. But for the most part, I try to do my best to let you guys be autonomous on how you approach these sorts of things. Now, one of the big things that I did do was come in and kind of mix up how we use our tools. And the types of tools that we use, we were a lot more machine learning and instant based than we were in the past, a little more rules based. I will say though that when I got here, and we'll talk about this right now, is when I got here, there was a very robust program in place. And a lot of that is credit to my predecessor, Sheldon, and you guys, and the work that you guys had done to do a set of really nice foundation for us to build and bring us to this new modern age. So let's talk about that, guys. You guys can jump in either way, whoever wants to. You can talk back and forth with each other, however it works. But let's talk about kind of the history of the fraud prevention in this department as you guys have been here, and then some of the changes that went through, and then where we're at kind of now. But we can take some time on this. Let's really flesh this out.
Yeah, we were already using threat metrics, and we were using threat metrics actually at my old job too. So I came in a little familiar with it. I wasn't really inside, manipulating a lot of the rules, but when I came in, I kind of like was able to go around, the portal, and I knew what I was looking at. But it wasn't until I think Sheldon came in, really tweaked a bunch of the rules in there and really just revamped the whole process for the entire team. He lowered the review rate by a lot. I don't remember the exact number, but a lot of the stuff that he did really helped our team out with just the review rate and false positives at the end of the day as well. And he did a tremendous job. I think Steve, you can probably speak a little more to Sheldon's portion on that.
Yeah, so I started around the same time as Sheldon, and I know the first initiative that he had was to pretty much overhaul the TMX policy, threat metrics policy that we had in place. Yeah, he did a really good job with that actually. And we recently engaged professional services to kind of try to challenge our default policy that Sheldon mainly created. And it turns out, the current policy that we had was actually the best fit for our organization. So that was cool to see. But yeah, a lot has changed, I guess, during this last year. Jordan, I think you started sometime in like October or December of 2021, right?
Yeah, December. Yeah, I came in it was like the first week of December. It was like that first Monday.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, during your first year, obviously a lot has changed. There's so many to list, but I would say like the most pivotal thing that has happened within the last year was our ability to kind of narrow down the list of fraud risk vendors based off your relationships and your experience with them. We were all very shocked to see like how much experience you had with these different vendors. So that was actually very advantageous for us. But yeah, you definitely, help us in terms of, giving us the insights on, which vendors are best and best fit for our organization. So,
yeah. And I think like when I joined, it was like what any company of our size, like we were like iHerb was in a place of huge growth, especially during the pandemic. Health and wellness, like a lot of people started keeping it front of mind. So iHerb went through a tremendous amount of growth during that time. And I think that when I joined, you guys were in a spot that was exactly where a company of this size needed to be in order to evaluate their tools to make sure that they had the right setup. Now, that doesn't mean that they have the wrong setup. It very well could have been everything was working just perfect, and I think that it's important to go out to market sometimes just to make sure. And I think a great example of that is we had this baseline that like you guys have been running under for several years, and that's all you really know was that baseline. And you don't know how it could be better, it could be worse. And I think a great example of that was when we engaged in professional services with LexisNexis on the threat metric side in order to see if they could beat it. And, you know, like I think that we used a lot of those professional service hours to get a better understanding of some of the new products that they had launched, like their OSL models, which I think is super important. I think they work really well for a lot of their customers. But going back to what I was saying earlier, with our particular business, it is challenging. People think that they know how to sell e-commerce products in Europe, and they might, but that's, you know, France, that's the UK, you know, that's like the Nordic countries. They don't know how to do it in some of the smaller countries that have a completely different pattern. So what appears to be fraud to a lot of people isn't necessarily fraud for us. We know like a certain country, they could only order a certain amount of product for personal consumption. So anybody that's placing a couple of smaller orders to try and get stuff in for their 5 family member household, the tool might look at it as fraud, but we know, okay, in this country, this is what the limit is. We know what they're trying to do. They're not trying to set up shop. They're not trying to resell product. We got to let them go. But those are something that like has to be honed in on our exact experience with our exact business. And I think that you guys have done a really good job of understanding our specific iHerb customer and their specific purchase patterns in order to get the maximum amount of value through. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And also to mention, this last year also was, we've also gone through a lot of changes, you know, worldwide as well. You know, unfortunately with the Russia and Ukraine situation, that really hindered our business and our business model probably quite a bit, especially when we were going through the process of, you know, talking to threat metrics and kind of looking at the OSL models and looking at these things. When we're all of a sudden just not doing business in a certain corner of the world, it really,
Yeah,
you know, it impacts a lot.
That's an excellent point. Like we had all of this data from this region that was our primary market. And then all of a sudden we no longer have this positive data to train models on. Like normally, like people in our space, like in our full e-commerce industry, like treat Russia as a hyper risky place to do business in. And we don't. And it was hard to work with machine learning, like pre-built black box models, because we have all of this positive history in that region that we would like to feed in as positive markers on these models, when all of a sudden all we have was negative from any sort of chargebacks that were outlying, but no positive sales to offset. So it was a very challenging thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I actually first came into iHerb, anything that I would see Yandex, you know, was for me bad because of what I had previously experienced before in my other job. So, you know, and that's pretty much the norm, especially when your business only does business, you know, in a certain areas. But again, iHerb is very unique.
That's like, it was so funny when I first joined and I was just like poking around in here, looking at some of the emails. It's just like nothing but like Ymail and 126.com and like all of these domains that like I just never allowed to be taken at any other job. But here, it's like a majority of our positive sales, you know. It's just, it's so weird to see, because those are common in those regions when you actually do business there. But if your business doesn't do business there and you're seeing those emails, usually it's probably up to no good. But it's just, it was a big learning curve. And it's one of those things where like going back to what I said earlier about first 90 days, where I prided myself on not coming in here and tearing it up. Like I see so many people join organizations and try to like, they think that the business is expecting them to make a splash and a change overnight. And when they come in, they're just super disruptive to that. And I mean, I've seen it happen like 2 times recently, like in the past year, where a person joined a company that I know and without any understanding of why the processes were done, tried to change a bunch of things and just getting smacked because of it. And the people don't respect them. The business is suffering. And it just makes for a really, really rough and disruptive time when, like here with me and you guys work for me. I mean, you could say however you really want to say it, but I tried to be a little more, I asked questions as to why the process, to understand the process. Like, why are we accepting Ymail? Why are we accepting 126? Why are we shipping these 15 different customers to a single locker? You know, And instead of just trying to cut it out, I asked you guys the questions, and you guys were always pretty good at providing real answers for me. So, gotta say,
Yeah, for sure. I do appreciate the fact when you first started, you didn't try to come in and start changing things up the way that you had things at your previous company. Like, for example, the email, the 126 and the Yandex. For sure, like for our customer base, that's actually very normal and safe. But maybe at your previous company that was deemed as high risk. The fraud team here at iHerb has been around for many years, and the processes that we have currently still they're just an accumulation of process improvements over the years. So, we're definitely appreciative that you didn't just come in and start trying to, change things up the way you thought was best fit. So,
yeah, and that's like everybody's always like, well, this is how I did it at my last company. Well, your last company isn't your current company. So stop trying to do that, everybody. Hey, anybody that's listening to this that's like trying to join another company, especially in a leadership role, stop trying to make your new company like your last company. Like, you need to understand the business is it's always going to be different. Even if it's like in a similar vertical, it's probably a completely different business. So slow down. You got 30 days to get to know your people. You got 60 days to get to know the business. And then in those 90 days, you can start making the changes. Just slow down a little bit. No one's going to fire you if you don't come making your best thing. And if they are going to fire you because you haven't changed everything in one day, it's probably not a company that you really want to be. That it's a very short-sighted leadership situation there. So everybody go get the book, The First 90 Days, read that, live by it, use it as your startup Bible for when you're joining a new company. And you'll be better because of it. And your staff will respect you more because of it. So there's my rant about that. So let's talk about the manual review team, because we do have staff that isn't us. We have staff that are the front lines, on the ground every day, doing the work, looking at the orders, and they are good, like, obviously, because they work here. But I think it's really interesting because I've seen manual review teams that haven't had to deal with the bullshit that our manual review teams have to deal with because of like the types of orders, the nature of our business. Like, it's just, we have resellers and we do allow resellers from time to time. Things are in different languages, different patterns. Like, talk about our team a little bit, guys. Like, let's sing their praises.
yeah, we have definitely a solid core team. At the peak of our team, we actually were a team of 13. Now we're down to, I believe, like 7 people. But yeah, so all the stuff that we're doing now, it's been put into place throughout the years. The team pretty much runs itself now, thanks to all the processes from our predecessors that were put into place, and we just try to improve upon the processes. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess one of the things that me and KDF or Chris try to implement here now with the smaller team is pretty much just try to cross train everybody on everything that comes through our team. So, we want everyone to be a subject matter expert when it comes to anything that crosses our path. So, for example, manual review, obviously, and the chargeback processes, the chargeback representments, the emails, and the rewards abuse.
Yeah, so I will say, guys, like, for my listeners, like, my manual review frontline team does not just do manual review. We have other things that our team is responsible for. We have rewards at our company. So if the more you purchase, the more you give like your affiliate code out, you gain rewards, and you can use those money to buy other things. We do allow a certain amount of rewards cash outs, and those are also monitored by my team for fraudulent activity, ATOs that might be gaining access to these rewards balances on these accounts and trying to cash out and steal people's rewards. So those are things that fall in our scope. We also help out a little bit with the refund abuse. Now, that is a different team that lands more in the customer experience and customer service team, but we do assist with them when they request it. Obviously, the chargebacks are a large piece. Every company's got chargebacks. We are still trying to do some more automation around that, but there's a lot that needs to be done. We really want to get things dialed in before we launch things right. So my staff they wear a lot of hats. It gives them a lot of responsibilities, and it diversifies their day, so they don't just get caught in this like just being a robot approving orders all day. We try to mix it up a little bit. We also try to have some flexibility with their schedules so they can have some sort of personal life as well.
Yeah, I think that we're pretty fortunate with the staff that we have on board. As you stated, everybody that we have on here is they do their job, and they do their job very well. We don't need to micromanage or anything like that. Plus, I mean, that's not my style. I know that's not Steve's style. they can really run the day to day by themselves, and we're very fortunate for that. And I know for myself, my approach with them is I allow them, to also do their thing, right? If they have something pressing, or if they have things that they need to get to, I say, okay, just take it one step at a time. If you need to get to something, go ahead and weigh out what you need to do first. And I trust them with the decisions that they're going to make on, how to do things and what to do.
Yeah, I think, and that's a good point, like to trust their decisions. I mean, especially with you guys, I know for me, like I trust your guys to make the right decisions for the business. So, and I also like, well, obviously empower you guys a lot, but also trust you guys a lot. Like I ask a lot of you guys, to go to people to get things that we need to get done. Like Steve, I usually ask you to go to Jimmy to get our BI stuff done. KDF, I ask you to go handle a lot of our fraud stuff with like the local and things like that. Our chargeback stuff. But when you can really trust your people to follow through, and make the right decisions and trust them to be autonomous, like it does. Like we hire professionals to do professional work, at the end of the day. And it's nice when like those people rise to like that expectation and that occasion.
The way I look at it is I'm here for support. I'm here to be a pillar of support for my team. And obviously, I allow them to make their own decisions, on certain things and everything. But when I know that there's something more pressing, right? For example, if there's something that can really catch the eye of a higher being, then I will come in, if I have to make the decision, I'll do that, just so that way I like to be accountable for my team. Anything that they do, also is going to fall on me. So, and I'm never going to point the finger at my team members. I'm never going to say, oh, this is your fault. I'm always going to be there for them 100% and be supportive 100%. I'm only as good as I make my
That's
team
true.
or how they are. So
yeah, and I, that's another thing. Like to go back, like I see other people and like the same people that are like try to join these companies and say like they're trying to affect change immediately. A lot of times if they do have any sort of change, like they try to be like, I did that, and it's like, no, like even if like it was your idea, the execution probably wasn't. There was a lot of people that went into play, and I think like making sure that like you're like one of the things, it's like the servant leadership thing. I've kind of talked about this on I think it was episode 5 that I did with my buddy Steve Ashton, is like the servant leadership situation in these types of roles is you as a leader are there to support your people and you're their servant. It's not the other way around. And I think a lot of people try and treat their people under them to serve them. Go do this for me. Go get this done for me. Do this. This is your job. When it's like, here's our goal and here's where we're at. We need to get to this goal. Let's all work towards this goal. And if there's anything that's in the way of you getting to this goal or your personal goal, I'm here to remove that blocker for you or give you the tools to get that done. Like I'm here to enable you. And if your people excel, like so many people get so worried about how they're viewed from their boss up top. And it gets to be a really selfish thing. And it's just the way the world is like they want to make sure that they are seen as important. So they don't lose their job, I would assume, but they want to make sure that they're seen as important and crucial to the success of the organization. And so they say their team will do something and build something. And they say, okay, look what I did, because their team did it. When they fail to see that if your team has success, the people on your team and they're rising and they're hitting these goals, they're hitting these milestones, and they're having this level of success, that looks good to your leadership on you as a leader, that they were able to achieve those goals and create this thing. And you don't have to say, I did that. You can say, look what my team did. And we did this as a team together. And it's so much better, not only for your people under you and how they view you as an individual and as a leader, but also better for the company to see that you are good at managing a team. And you're not, if you're a one-man army, then like, what do you need the team for? So you can actually have a negative effect on that. I don't know. It's just my rant. It's just how I've always ran it. And I think you guys see like when I do meetings and other things with other people, like I always call you guys out for your piece of the business, like what you did on your piece, like you got these numbers or you fought these chargebacks. Like I try to make sure that like you guys get your name and your face time, especially when we're talking to leadership internally. So that's just me. That's a big rant. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's the way I see it as well. I remember when this might be a little I mean, it's not, real world stuff here, but when I was, even in football in high school, guess who took out the water jug with all the ice? The team captains did. They were the ones that took out the water for the rest of
Gives a
the
little
team.
bit of humility there,
Just
Yeah.
exactly. And we all kind of need to have that. I've been fortunate enough to have good bosses, and I've been fortunate enough to have bad bosses too. So I've learned from each and one of them, how I would like to approach things and stuff like that. So it's just
Okay. Well, that's a good segue. What's it like working for me? Tell the world what it's really like working for me, guys.
No, I really enjoy working for you, Jordan. I feel like I definitely have the same feeling that I had, before, where you allow us to really be creative and, expand within our roles. And that's one of the things that I've always liked, especially coming from, I'm a musician, you're a musician. We love to be creative, in certain things. And, you know, don't be surprised when I say that you can be creative when it comes to analytics and business, and fraud world and stuff like that. You can do a lot of different things to help mitigate these losses. So,
Okay, thank
I
you.
do enjoy coming in, working for you. I feel like I can be myself. I feel, yeah, it's a great environment for sure.
You can sip on a little bit of bourbon while we're recording a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Just before Steve, you go and answer. You're part of it. I just got a delivery just a little bit ago of a new Colonel E.H. Taylor and an Eagle Rare, and I got them at retail price. I didn't pay over
Ooh,
retail,
what's
so
that EH Taylor? Let me see. Small batch?
it is the small batch one, yeah. And I got it for retail. I got it from Mission Wine and Spirits up in Woodland Hills. So they
Oh
actually were
man.
able to send it to me. So I'm pretty happy for this weekend, even though it's only Tuesday. I'm pretty happy for this weekend when I can try it. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
looks pretty good. I was
yeah.
recently
So
watching the movie and I forgot what movie it was, but your Blanton's came out on there. Like,
oh,
oh,
did it?
it's
Oh
Jordan's
man,
Blanton's right there.
that's my Blantons. That's my daily driver. I had a little bit on Sunday morning. Well, not morning, not
Nice.
like the crack of dawn, but during football. Yeah, but I got to ration it because I'm only down to 2 bottles, so I have to make
Yeesh.
sure I don't rip through it. So Steve, what
Yeah.
about you? What's it like working for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great, working under you. When I first learned that you were coming on board, I took a little peep at your resume and I was pretty amazed at the amount of knowledge and credentials that you had. So that was very exciting to see, that I'll be working under someone like that. Being that for me personally, I've only had experience in the fraud industry under iHerb. So everything that I know about fraud, it's related to iHerb, right?
Yeah.
So you coming from the outside, having, a lot of experience at different type of, companies. I love the fact that I'm able to just pick your brain on anything fraud related. So that's like my biggest takeaway from like you coming on board. Like you're pretty much like a knowledge base for me. And I've seen what you've done for your career and how you've kind of set up, pretty much cemented your name in the industry. And for someone like me, it kind of motivates me to try to replicate something like you've created for yourself.
Thank you. And I think like with you guys, we talked about career trajectories and having momentum earlier. It's one of those things with you guys and like Steve, you've brought it up to me a lot. Like you and I have had these conversations a lot about like what your future could look like in the industry. And I try to make sure that you guys are being involved. Like one of the goals that we had last year, but kind of got derailed was like that you guys go and speak at a conference, like you go do some sort of panel, some sort of thing, which is kind of what I normally do. But I want you guys to be able to have that too, as long as you're hungry for it. We talked about it, and getting you guys to be out, like get you out of the office into the industry more, so you get that exposure outside of just iHerb, so you can see the different how different companies are doing kind of the things that we do. And we're going to talk about that in the next the final part here is kind of the trends that we see versus what other people see. But I think it was really important to start getting you, like Steve, you were able to go to Boston for the Riskified conference, which I think was really good for you to finally get to spend some face time with some of your peers in the industry. And KDF, you're going to be coming with us to the MRC in a couple of months here, like about a month and a half now. That's coming up quick. So I think that's going to be real good for the three of us to really go and spend some time, a whole week in Las Vegas with our peers, and it really be like share our behind the storyline or behind the line stories with a lot of people at wonderful dinners and wonderful cocktail hours. So thank you guys for allowing me to come in here too. I think there were some changes that had to get made, unfortunately, during the scale backs, and it was a lot to ask. When you see companies that go through changes like that, um, it can lead to a lot of uncertainty on folks. And I think I was trying to be as transparent as I possibly could with you guys. It's just like, bear with me, and we're gonna get through this. And I think we came out the other side, and I think that you guys have really both um really come into your own as far as like what your role is and how you guys are approaching it. So, any thoughts there?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, a lot of it is because, the fact that you're able to, where you allow us also to, kind of do our thing and be creative with how we approach things. So, it all goes hand in hand.
I give you
So
guys the goal, and how you guys get to the goal is up to you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It all goes hand in hand, and yeah, we feel pretty comfortable, confident, especially coming into this year. Last year was very unprecedented in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. I mean, starting from the very beginning, there was just a lot of changes that were made, not just in the industry, but in, certain corners of the world, and just the worldwide. It was very unprecedented. So hopefully, I think this year will be a little bit more smooth sailing. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see. Maybe we'll get a 2022 S instead of 2023.
Yeah. Okay, guys. What about how about any negatives? Any negatives working for me? Huh? Huh? Huh?
My mic cut off. What happened?
Well, oh,
Just
that's right.
kidding.
No. Let's talk about the trends that we're seeing specifically in our business, and what I think and what we think we might be seeing in 2023 going forward. So this is going to be the first episode. As we all know, as you're all listening, you're still here. This is the stuff that I think that we're seeing, and that I think other people are going to see outside of just us. So I kind of broke it down. I got three different things that I want to talk about as far as what we're currently working on, and then we'll kind of go into some of the trends that are happening in the future. So obviously, I think one of the things that with us that we are aware of, and we have done a lot of work around, especially in the last year, is rewards. Now, I've been saying on a lot of podcasts and a lot of my panels that people are going to be attacking non-monetary situations on your website a lot more. So, granted, rewards balances, like these are like points, Hilton points, like airline points, all those sorts of things, which we've known are going to be targeted for a number of years. But I've really been seeing it kind of crank up to 11 of people trying to exploit and game systems to get some sort of monetary reward out of them that isn't necessarily regular credit card carding fraud. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, our rewards program, it's a very enticing program for a lot of users. So there's definitely a lot of demand for that aspect of our business. But with that, with these incentives brings obviously the bad actors. And we've definitely seen an increase in, policy rewards abuse. And we tried our best to stay ahead of it. But
I
it
will
got a
think,
little.
yeah, I will say that we've done a really, really, really good job of staying ahead of it. I think like where with me specifically, like a lot of it is automated. I just want to automate more, but that's just like the nature of my business. But I will say, like, you guys have done a really good way. Like we pass our rewards payouts through our fraud tools as well, folks. And I think that is, if you're not doing that at your current company, like, you should. But there's still, we have an element of manual review that comes with that as well. That I think in an ever ongoing quest for optimization, there's always opportunities there. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, we work closely with the rewards team on they come to us for recommendations on like what's the best practice here. We're gonna launch this new product. Like is they always come to us for our advice on any risk. But it did get a little tricky because obviously ATOs, the hot topic of ATOs, it's one thing, but then it's different. It hits different when they're abusing both the reward side plus ATO in one. So that's another area that we've been working on in the last year. But we've worked closely with our information security team, and we've put in a lot of measures in place to kind of secure our customer accounts.
Yeah, and coming back to what we said, about earlier about our customer being unique, our infosec team has done a great job of developing some in-house tools that specifically address our unique customers to protect us against ATOs. And that's something that we've been running the last year, and it's just getting better and better and better. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
and
then, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
we're always looking to, refine our processes. We're always out there in the market to see what new technologies are out there, what more can we do with our existing stuff. So we're always on the lookout for like the next thing, right?
Yeah, I will say that like you guys have you had already built a very robust KPI dashboard here. It has about 12 or 13 different tiles on it of things that we monitor on this particular team, around like a false positive rates, approval rates, chargeback rates, of course. And I will say that that has been a very good driver of ideas and activities for optimization, trying to enhance those individual metrics. Obviously, like anyway, it's done panels with me. Approval rates is my big driver. I think that we need to really increase our approval rates as an industry instead of being the decliners. We need to work on getting more accurate decisions and getting our rates up. And I will say that we really focused on that as a company over the last year, to really drive that and get our products in our customers' hands faster with less friction. And I think that it's a real big testament to what we've done over here, but there's always, more optimization that could be done. And you just got to really watch it so you don't push it too far. And our communication, like cross department communication over the last year has really, really improved. So we can really make sure that like when we make changes or when they make changes, we tend to be able to keep each other in the loop to a certain level that has been really helpful. So people can understand the why when we change things, and what that's going to affect. And then they have the answers, especially like on order declines for different types of reasons. Like they have the answers so that they can tell those customers right up front instead of having to wait and reassign it and all that. So
That's a good point, Jordan. That's also another thing that we've worked on, right? And within the last year is better communication, transparency. And I think that we've come a long way, especially just in this last year, with different departments and kind of working, with other realms within, our organization. It's made us better as a team, but the fact that we're approachable and other teams are approachable, that's very important. And I think we've learned that, within these last, especially 6 months.
yeah, I think that it was a real big focus of mine to make sure that like we were, as I always say, in the room when decisions were being made, so that we can make sure that our piece of the business is protected from the beginning instead of playing like catch up with everybody. And it seems to be going pretty well. And I will say the understanding that we get from some of the leadership from the other teams, like when we make changes, is a lot more understanding now as to what's happening. Like they just like it used to be like they'd be like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And now it's more, hey, this is what we think's happening. We just want to double check. All right, thank you. And then they leave, and they take what they need. They already know how to have like the soft skills to answer it. One of the things that's always a challenge in fraud is balancing like your friction. And we have that same balancing act happening here. We're not immune to that at this company. So we have a lot of customers that have unique purchasing patterns that sometimes can get caught up in things like fraud rules or even velocity limits elsewhere, or even ATO stuff, even when our machine learning, like they're traveling and they just happen to hit the right number of criteria and they get caught up on it. And we can't change like the protection for the masses for like the one, and I think that that's something that's been really worked on this last year, is like when we do have a false positive, is it indicative of a larger problem, or is it just like literally a one-off? Like we were working on one today, it was like literally a one-off and there's nothing that we could do about that. Like that was completely like the Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events for that poor customer, but we need to protect the vast majority of those customers, so we can't change that for that one person. But for the most part, there was nothing that we could do about that. And I think that that's one of those things like where when we really opened up that communication, we were able to get a lot more done cross department. And like you said, the transparency, I always try to be transparent with you guys, try to be transparent with the overall team. And I try to be really transparent with our leadership here and tell them the reason why, even when it's not positive, the reason why something is happening, to be completely honest with them. So there's no blindsiding and no shock. So you don't need to put lipstick on a pig. You can be honest with your folks, both up and down. And it goes a lot a lot further on how a company and how people view you and trust you. So, yeah, that makes sense, guys.
Definitely.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah,
Go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
no, for sure, Jordan. Like I do feel like you've done a good job with, the executive team here and other leadership in our organization. Like your delivery of whatever we're doing on our side and just giving that justification. Like everyone is understanding of the changes. So in the past we may have run into some issues, but ever since you've joined, it's been pretty smooth sailing so far.
I appreciate that. I mean, sometimes I'm an oversharer, but at the end of the day, it needs to some things just need to be said, like the reason why. I don't like to hide things. Like, if like we had that problem where we had a couple extra chargebacks come in 1 month, and we were just super honest about why it was happening. And it was completely out of our hands again on that. That was a completely freak thing. But we were able to solve it real quick. Like your vigilance on that, Steve, thank you for that, on finding those happening right away, was super good. And we were able to attack it, I think even that same day. So we were able to fix that, which is just a testament to like how if you can have your time on your day spent really searching for the things instead of trying to like fix broken processes, like you have a lot more time to open up to find people that are exploiting it. And I think that like we have a pretty good KPI system, and it's set up a pretty good data system where we can get to the data that we need. And you guys are familiar enough with the back end that you can figure out what's going on. So let's kind of end up with some of the things. Now I have a list that I think is we have some lists on these notes that we have, but I have another list. I did an interview for an upcoming article about what I think the top trends are going to be in 2023. So I'm going to talk about these guys, and let's just have a quick chat about them, and then we'll wrap up here. So I think there's going to be the first two are going to be kind of hand in hand. I think policy abuse and refund abuse are still going to be the biggest things. I think people trying to exploit rewards policies like $5 rewards, any sort of incentives that you might have in order to get free product or get free cash is still going to be heavily exploited with shell accounts, with people making more purchases than they're supposed to, and then obviously trying to refund those very same products and get to keep the products. I think those are still going to be massive problems and probably grow. And I think it's going to have to be one of those things that's like it's solved with technology. You can queue up all of the things that you want, but I think in order to really, I think it's going to grow to a problem that it has to be solved with technology. Personally, I think you're going to need to use your fraud tools in these sorts of places, in places that you wouldn't normally use your fraud tools, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess for me, I do think abuse or policy abuse, whether it be your return service or rewards program in our case, it's probably going to be targeted this year. So you don't necessarily need to place a fraudulent order to, fraud a company. For example, like our company, we have a rewards program. You can actually cash out those funds. So it's very important to have, the correct technology and have all the data that you need to make the sound decisions there.
Yeah, there's not only from just like a regular fraud prevention, but from compliance and all of that. These are attractive programs that we like as a business that we don't want to deprecate. Because they are our customers like it, our customers rely on them, they use them, and we don't want to just like try and stifle a program that a lot of our customers get value and benefit out of. And I think that a lot of times there's a knee-jerk reaction just to shut something off versus like solve for the actual underlying issue, which leads me to my next thing, which is I think bots are going to continue to be more problematic as fraudsters get more sophisticated. And like I actually was said it on that same interview that I did, that I think that the technology for bots and for scripts is becoming more available to the regular public. Like the layman is able to find tools in order to scam systems more than they used to be. What was reserved for more technologically advanced individuals is now more available to the masses. So you will see more bots attacking you, creating accounts, creating those shell accounts to do those abusive things like gaming policies or gaming rewards credits or extra coins if you're gaming, whatever it may be. I think that those are really going to be more than ever. So make sure that you have a really good defense system against bots and scripting on your site. creating shell accounts, doing nefarious activities, changing addresses, all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's one there. You guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, we've definitely had our share of, bot attacks on our side, specifically in the reward side where, there's a lot of like repetitive actions that the fraudster must do to kind of game the system. So I think our security team did a pretty good job on implementing, like perimeter X to stop those kind of attacks. But the fraudsters always find a hole and they will attack. So we're prepared on our side to, we won't be surprised if they do attack us
Yeah.
this year. So
It's
we're
good that we
ready.
have people, like, we have time to monitor these sorts of things too. So when we see it happen, we can address it. And that's one thing, like coming back to like our team being cross-trained in other things, it's good to have them have time to be able to look for these sorts of things because these patterns are important.
Yeah, and our security team is very open to kind of showing us, how perimeter X works, and they're open to teaching us like in areas that we might not be fully familiar with. So again, it comes back to kind of having that good collaboration with other teams.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that we have every other week we meet with our security team, and we do a knowledge share both back and forth. And they get to know what we're working on. We share lists back and forth, and it keeps everybody in the know of what's happening because there's a lot of crossover on security teams and fraud teams. So there's a lot of times that they have tools that can help us and our tools can help them. And it's really, really important to keep everybody on the same page. I know I've talked about it a couple of times on here, but still want to drive it home. In 2023, that's still going to be relevant. So another big thing that I think is going to be important, and actually I can kind of combine the two of these things maybe. The reemergence of a triangulation scheme. And for those that don't know, a triangulation scheme is when somebody sets up like a website and offers a product for a certain price, and then an unsuspecting end user comes on and makes a purchase on that product for that product on that website, and that order gets fulfilled by using stolen credentials on a main site, another site, in order to fulfill that order and ship it directly to the customer. So at the end of the day, like usually the address and everything is going to the end using customer, but the credit card credentials might have a different name on it or not belong to them. It's a whole thing. Now that's something that we've seen really be reemerging, and I think a lot of that is related to like the ease of putting up like a Facebook ad type site where you can just drop in, a couple sponsored dollars, drive traffic to your website, sell that pool heater or that patio heater for half price, and then use stolen credentials to buy that patio heater from like a Target or something like that. So the reemergence of triangulation schemes, I think, is pretty big. We thought we'd all solve that 10 years ago, and here it is coming back with a new type of scheme. And I think one of the things too that is related to that is the address manipulations to get around static blocks. Like so many times you would block a shipping address to try and stop it from going to like a blank lot, or going to 123 Main Street. Well, now you're seeing the fraudsters just add like X123 Main Street or spell Main wrong or put Main Avenue on there in order to get around those blocks. And so if you're not using any sort of address like manipulation or address cleaning tools, you could have a really bad time there. So Steve, I know you were kind of working a lot on some of the address manipulation stuff here. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely the address manipulation is an issue. I know some fraud services, it might be a little bit more harder to kind of solve that problem because, in the shipping line one, if they put special characters in it, certain fraud vendors might not be able to pick up on non-English characters. But thankfully, like the service that we're with now is able to kind of clean up that address and, see what the real address is and not get confused by like, asterisks or and signs. So yeah.
I think like for the audience, it is what Steve just kind of mentioned there is super important. You need to figure out the limitations of your fraud tool, and it might not be anything that like you did wrong. It might be an actual technical limitation, like the special characters or foreign characters might not translate well to your fraud tool. So there are certain things like if you're seeing any sort of weirdness like that, like my very first recommendation is to call your fraud tool and get them on the phone, talk to them about it, because it could not be an issue on their side. It could be how you're sending the information to them. So you want to make sure that that they can handle special characters, or foreign characters, Chinese characters, those sorts of things, the Russian, the crazy R, whatever it may be, and get and see if there's a technological fix to that. And there might be, there might not be. And if there's not, you might need to normalize that information on your side first before you send it to your fraud tool to make sure that you're getting the accurate information. So those are my main ones that I think is going to be bigger in 23. Obviously, like we're still going to have carding is still going to always be a thing. That's a forever thing. I just think there's going to be more use of technology from the fraudster side in order to come at us from all angles. But thankfully, like I'm very proud of you guys and the work that you guys do and the vigilance that you guys have. So I'm not worried about any sort of craziness happening on our side. I say that with knock on wood, but I think that we have an excellent team that's extremely vigilant and extremely transparent with each other. And we keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening. So yeah. Any final words, guys?
No, not really, but just want to thank you, Jordan, for having us on, helping us get exposure in the industry. So thank you for that.
That's what I always pay. So no bonuses this year, guys. You guys are getting paid in exposure, like any good Reddit artist.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us on here, Jordan. This was definitely a great experience, and we definitely appreciate it. So
yeah, hey guys, thanks again for coming on here. Thanks for working for me. You guys have been here for a long time. We're gonna have a great 2023. I'm excited about the stuff that we're building. So once again, guys, thanks again for being a crucial part of my team. Thanks for leading your people on our team and for being a fundamental part of the iHerb team. Thanks, guys.